Hey guys, when we think about the best schools to play in Wiz, the same one or two schools probably come to mind. But why? Why do we look at schools like Death and Storm as the best? What does the best even mean? Is it how easy it is in mob and boss battles to one-shot? Or is it how easy it is to solo? Is it the speed at which you can get to max level? And then you can dig even deeper and say, well, I finish battles faster if I don't die in the middle of them and have to restart. So is survivability what makes a school one of the best? Even though there may not be a definitive answer to what makes certain schools the best without dropping them into a niche, like the most common one being to start off with in Wiz, each school has its upsides and downsides to playing it. It's just based on how the school works. So I just want to talk about the two best and worst things that each school has to offer. Before I get into that, I just wanted to emphasize that this is not covering more endgame content like raids and max level PvP, even though some of what's on this list could apply to them. There could be a whole separate video made about how good schools are when it comes to raids and PvP, so for now this is just going to be about questing and playing through the game at a basic level, since that is what I'm most familiar with. Also, this is going to go by really fast, hopefully. Deep breaths. We're going to go death, then myth, then ice, balance, fire, storm, and life. So, with Wizard101's depiction of stealing and supporting themselves, Death conveniently has two super duper big pros. Number one is that the damage spells simultaneously heal the caster, and two, Death is unintentionally a really good support school because of the super good buffs that already come with the school, like Feint and Curse. Because of both of these, Death is really independent because they don't need to rely on other schools for different gameplay factors like staying alive and building up buffs for themselves. Now, for the two worst things. Number one being that the AoE spells, which are meta right now, are so scarce. Scarecrow feels like it takes forever to get, and the low pip AoEs like Deer Knight and Ship of Fools aren't as accessible. There is a Gloomy Eye pet that has the Death Frog AoE, but with Death being the quote-unquote best school to solo, I just picked Death and went with it when I first started, and I didn't even find out about that until I already got Scarecrow, which probably happens to a lot of other people. Okay, so the second worst thing is that teams can be kind of whack because Death was made to sustain itself through hitting, so if you joined a team up to be a support with no healer, you might end up dying early in the battle if you're not draining. This happened to me a lot in Darkmoor actually, like during the farming stage, but luckily Death Wizards can hold their own and don't have super low health, but it's just something to watch out for. And also, that was most likely a skill issue on my part. Now, with the Imagination and Creation School, the first part of Myth isn't actually about logistics. It's just that Myth is such a fun school to play. It's genuinely so enjoyable. I don't know how to go into too much details. I think a part of it is that its gimmick is so irrelevant, but it doesn't cause other things like stats, damage spells, and questing efficiency to diminish in quality. Even though the creating part of Myth isn't used, the damage is still good, the stats are still good, and it's fun to play solo and with others. And the spells are appropriately paced too, nothing like two good AoEs that do great damage. The second best thing about Myth is that it has spells with the ability to manipulate gameplay and team rotations. Unique spells like Stun, Pierce and Shatter, and lots of others that simultaneously debuff opponents while doing damage are super fun to explore. I know a lot of people think that the stuns are useless, but I'm gonna bring up Darkmoor again and say there are certain team rotations that do go crazy when a stunner makes. For example, the last Milestar battle go by so fast and so fun because the mobs don't get a turn. Anyways, because of all that, Myth is able to prosper outside of its set role because its gimmick doesn't hurt any of those important factors like damage and team rotations. A little bonus thing I should probably say is that I hear Myth is really good in PvP, but I don't know anything about that. I just wanted to mention it. Now for the first con. Myth's main minion idea is super inefficient to play. Minions are just useless and phase out after the early game when you get better spells. It seems like Monstrology was supposed to help the minion situation and make it more fun, but players aren't really using that feature at all. I don't know anyone who falls to their knees during the double Animus events, so I feel bad for Monstrology. Honestly, it would be really cool if KI developed the minion creation part of Myth that could be useful in battles, like if we had control of the minion or just anything, something, I don't know. Second con is that mediocrity punishes the Myth school badly when it comes to team situations. Wizard101 is an MMORPG that inherently involves team-ups in certain dungeons to progress through the game, and that's when each school's distinctive roles are able to shine. When you join team-up as a Myth and see a storm or fire, you know you won't be the hitter, but at the same time, the foundation of Myth's supportive capabilities are outshined by life healers or death and balance buffers. Basically, it's not the best because Myth's main purpose of creating minions backfired so hard that the school resorting to being a hitter without anything special will always make it so that it will always fall second to schools that were made for that purpose. Don't get me wrong, the damage is incredibly good, like Orthrus is so good, but the inherent nature of Myth pales in comparison to roles that have more meaning in the game, like being a dedicated hitter. Now, ice. It's a good thing we're starting with the pros of the school meant to be slow and steady. One being that when you sign up to play an ice wizard, you get exactly what was promised. It is slow, it is steady when it comes to damage, which, if that's your thing, is great. Ice has spells that even help it be a tank when doing damage, or not, like Steel Ward and all the armor shields. And I'm not going to give any advice on how to play the game because I'm the last person that should be doing that. But a lot of the ice spells, like the armor ones, are kind of questionable when questing. Also, the high defense that ice naturally has helps too. And for the second pro, I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't really think of another good thing about the ice school. So, to make up for that, I will mention two mediocre things. One is that Ice probably has the most community support going for it right now. Frost Giant was able to go from 475 to 570 because of players, but that did take a few years. The Ice community is probably the most persistent, and hopefully some changes are made in the future other than the Frost Giant buff. People that are passionate about Ice know that the utility built into Ice spells like stuns are useless, which doesn't deserve to hold down the damage sometimes. Another okay thing about Ice is that it has a wide range of spells. It has the worst spell, Celestial Intervention. That is not an opinion, it's a fact. And some of the best spells, like Weaver and Snowball Barrage. So, for the cons, I really don't want to go into too much, so first, the big negative that comes out of Ice leaning into its identity way too much is that it makes questing very slow, like incredibly slow because of the damage, which is a really bad downside to Ice. It starts off quite well because after Wizard City you go to Krokotopia where there's a bunch of fire mobs, but the utility of the spells just kind of slow everything down, which isn't most players' cup of tea. Second thing is that Ice is too busy tanking to even hit. It's crazy that when it comes to Myth, their role barely plays a part in gameplay, but still manages to be good, but Ice is literally only its role and nothing else, and it's really inefficient when questing through the game. Yes, it's slow, it's steady, but there's no strength to make up for that. It's actually kind of annoying because Fire low-key has the same idea where they slowly burn their enemies, but it's not like they have low damage, so what is the issue with Ice? Technically, if you play Ice, you're getting what you signed up for, which could count as a positive, but I don't know. To be honest, this is not the school's fault at all. I guess the game just made Ice to have underpowered damage spells because it literally says that in the description, except it seems like the Lemuria spells along with Snowball Barrage are pretty good, but they involve Shadow Pips. So yay to Ice for blowing that slow and steady idea way out of proportion. I always feel bad thinking about Ice, so we are moving on. On to the school that takes a little bit from every school to exist, Balance. Starting off with the first best thing about the school, from the name, Balance is balanced by having the most versatile set of spells. Spells like Hydra and Nested Fury make it so that battling Balance bosses as a Balance doesn't subject you to a nightmare with Resist. I honestly think that being able to get the blades without a training point and then being able to use them with Elemental or Spirit Balance spells is so neat. It's like you're not being left out of the game by being able to use those. The other best thing about Balance is that apparently it's really fun in PvP. I know this video isn't specifically supposed to be about PvP, but balanced PvP is really broken, and I really encourage y'all to watch some balanced PvP and questing videos because one, they're fun to watch, but also you can learn about how to use balanced spells efficiently. Okay, for the cons. First worst thing is that when questing, the first thing you always have to ask yourself when you're about to go into battle always starts off with, am I going into this battle with a balanced boss? Because you are not working with any prisms. Technically, this could be a good thing if you like changing up your deck a lot, but it is pretty annoying that you have to constantly adjust your game plan, and it makes sense that balance is balanced and that there's spells to do elemental and spirit damage for those situations, but it's just a little annoying. Second worst thing is that Balance's shtick of being able to do different kinds of damage makes it so that there is an open space of not having a secure way to keep account of other factors like healing. Sure, you can buff yourself, but it's definitely a lot easier to work with somebody else. Moving on to the school that burns people to death, the Fire School actually has a lot of good things about it. The first best thing is that the concept of damage over times aren't actually that bad. It's a way to bypass shields and weaknesses if your opponent is being annoying and casting damage reduction spells, and that first tick will get rid of all the negative debuffs, and hopefully the next ones will hit hard. Second best thing is that Fire probably has one of the most insane combo setups ever. They have the potential to be amazing in team setups and do damage that can kill in 2 or 3 rounds. The most popular one is probably any damage over time like Hellhound and Incendiate. I'm not saying the original name, by the way, just because it sounds silly. Anyways, farming with that team setup is so easy and does super high damage. So, for the cons, I'll start off by saying that the super good combos like the one I just mentioned is locked behind the Professor's Horde pack or a pet jewel to get that Incendiate item card. So you either have to empty that bank account or pray that the RNG gods are with you. Second worst thing is that damage over times aren't really integrated into the game to be meta or anything. Maybe on your own you can work it out, but trying to set up for fire hits is pretty difficult if it isn't pre-planned unless it's one of those special battles where the cheats are in favor of damage over times. Yay, Belloc! But other than that, the gimmick can mess up a lot of things, especially if you're a fire that doesn't know what they're doing and ends up using another person's buffs. And now the hitters, Storm. This will be as fast as it takes for Storm Wizards to finish PvE battles. The two best things, Damage and Tempest, that was one. And second thing is super low pips for all that damage, plus built-in fun things like stuns and accuracy debuffs, which, contrary to other schools, don't sacrifice its damage for. It's like a fun add-on, the damage plus that. Now the two worst things. One, dies easily because of low health, and two, if you're gonna take a long time to set up a hit, you might be better off with a questing buddy that can keep you alive like a life. So in certain situations, you may need to do team ups. And last but not least, the School of Healing. The two best things about life is that one, it's the only school meant for healing. So this means you'll stay alive and your teammates will too if you're in a group. So everyone lives. And if you love being thanked for your service, life is the best thing ever. It's so nice to feel appreciated in teams, and sure, storms will hit and kill, but who is everyone saying thank you to for keeping them alive? Second, life wizards are so handy if you're playing with other people. It's super easy to play when you're in a group, and like number one, you will feel loved. I mean, I guess you could solo some things with a life wizard, but it's just better and easier to be with others. Okay, now the two worst things about playing life, they're both about player expectations. It's not fun if you don't like long-ish gameplay, and damage isn't the main focus of life, so you can't really expect groundbreaking numbers if that's your thing, but it's super good enough to be able to hit if needed, but the damage is not bad at all. Yay! That was easy. Thanks for sticking with me. And actually, I wanted to say that, yes, I know the time between this and my first video is like super long, but I was supposed to have this video finished like 2 weeks ago, I think. Like, I was working on this 2 weeks ago, and I ended up going on vacation, like, I don't know when, but I didn't expect to have no service in the middle of the ocean, which is kind of stupid of me. Like, I thought I would have some sort of way to work on this, but I didn't. So I've kind of been like slacking on finishing this, but I'm thinking I'm super close to finishing Empyrea, so I will be making a video on that. Just my general thoughts, so keep an eye out. Yay!